So now that we know what actions are, how to define them, and how to implement them throughout our HTTP requests, now let's go through and define the remainder of the actions we're going to need for our particular blog application, and then implement those checks as well. So if we take a look at our application and what we have so far we've hidden the create post button if the user is not authenticated. In addition to that, we've also stopped the user from being able to access unpublished posts. We get back this 404 error stating that the post is not yet published. So we did that in the last lesson. In this lesson, what we need to do is hone in more on this post detail page in itself. So as you can see, I'm not authenticated right now via this little header up here. It would be showing just log out if I were. But yet we're still seeing the create comment form. We're still seeing the edit post, and delete comment buttons. None of those actions would work for me as an unauthenticated user. And in addition to that, we only want some of these actions like edit post, and delete comment to be accessible to certain roles and to certain users, depending on whether or not they themselves created the post or created the comment. So that's what we're going to be rounding out today. We're going to be finishing up what we've already started in the last lesson by creating those actions and implementing those checks. So far we have taken care of administrators completely. So we've done that via this before hook right here, where we're checking if the user is an admin, just automatically allow them to do whatever. Then in this after hook, we're just simply logging things out as a way to track what has been authorized and what has been denied. And then we have two post-based actions defined, one for creating post and one for viewing post. The create post is already completely done. All that we needed to do for this create post was ensure that the user was either an editor or an admin. And here we're checking whether or not they're an editor and returning back true if they are and false if they are not. And the admin is again taken care of via the before hook. The view post though is only halfway done. So we're currently checking whether or not the post is published and denying access if the post is not published, and allowing access if the post is published, even for guests. So that means unauthenticated users can view our post as we are right here. However, if a post is not published, we still want to allow the post author and administrators to view that particular post. So we already have administrators taken care of via our before hook again. So all that we need to do is worry about the actual author for the post. And we can take care of that by an additional if statement. So if post.userid equals the user.id, then we can go ahead and return true because we know that the authenticated user ID matches that post's author ID, which we are currently saving as the user ID. And again, since guests are allowed to view posts, we are not certain that a user is here. So we need to be safe about our types here by adding a question mark onto our ID check so that it safely fails if that user is actually null. So our view post is now 100% done. So if we go ahead and save this, jump back into our browser and log in as this user. So test user 1, and there we go. Let me get rid of my pop-ups. We jump into here and the unpublished post has an ID of 2. So if I visit that post, we can now view it. Whereas if I log out and I try to head right back to this page, we're going to be denied access again, which is exactly what we want. So that takes care of our view post. The next thing that we're going to want to create an action for is editing a post. So let's do define edit post, define our callback here, type user, and then we're going to want a post for this as well. And so whenever it comes to editing a post, all that we want to do is allow the actual author of the post the ability to edit in addition to administrators. Just like all of our actions here, admins are taken care of. So all that we really need to do is add this little block right here down here. And we can simplify this a little bit by taking it out of the if statement and simply returning back the result of that check. And since this will not allow guests, we can get rid of the question mark there as well. So our edit post is done. Let's go ahead and implement that. So if we head back up into our post controller, we'll take care of it on the back end first. And we head over to our edit. We can extract Bouncer out of here. So Bouncer. And just after we find the post, let's go ahead and await bouncer.authorize edit post and pass it in the post. Now packaged in with edit is also going to be update. There's really never going to be an instance in this application where we'll want somebody to be able to see the edit form but not actually be able to submit it. So both edit and update are going to be using the same action here. So we'll go ahead and extract Bouncer out of here as well. And again, we're going to want to do this after we get the post. However, we probably want to do this before we validate, because if we do it after we validate, if the user submits the form, one, we're going to have to validate that data before we actually tell them that they're unauthorized to perform the action. And two, if they actually submit invalid data, then they're going to get back the invalid data response instead of the actual fact that they are unauthorized to perform that action. So before we validate, but after we get the post, let's go ahead and await bouncer.authorize. And again, this is going to be edit post, and let's provide it the post. Now, before we take care of the front end portion of this, let's go ahead and test to make sure that the actual edit functionality here is working. So if we click on edit post, oh, never mind that. We need to be authenticated here because we have the auth middleware check on that. So actually, let's register a second user that is not the author. So we'll do test user 2, test user 2. Okay, now let's try to go in and edit. And there we go. You can see we're not authorized to perform this action. So that seems to be working a-okay as well. So let's go ahead and hide this edit button for this user. So if we jump back into our editor and jump down to the show page, that's where our edit button is. And right here is our actual edit link. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this out and wrap this up in a can. So can edit post, and then we need to provide it the post. And since we're on the edit page, we have global access to the post object itself. So we can just do post and then at ncan, and let's plop that back there in the center. So now if we head back into our browser, that button should now be gone once we refresh, and there it goes. So next, let's go ahead and take care of the delete. So let's jump back into our editor, jump back into the bouncer.ts file, and let's define destroy post, user post. There we go. And really this is going to be the exact same as edit post. So let's return post.userid equals user.id. Now, instead of duplicating yourself here like I am, if you're going to have multiple cases where you need to perform the exact same check, you can, up at the top of your file or up at the bottom of your file using hoisting, you can define a function that performs this check and accepts the same arguments as the callback, and then just provide that function as the actual callback function instead of rewriting the callback over and over again. Since we're going to be refactoring these in the next lesson, I'm going to go ahead and leave this as is. So let's go ahead and implement our destroy post. So back up in our post controller here, let's scroll on down to destroy. Let's grab our bouncer property. And again, after we get the post, but before we actually delete, let's go ahead and await bouncer.authorize destroy post and pass it the post. So we can give that a save, and let's go ahead and verify that if we try to delete, we're not authorized to perform that action. And so we can jump back in here and now hide that out of our front end. And that is this entire form right here. So I'm going to cut this out, do at can destroy post and provide it the post, and can, and paste that form back in. So if we head back into our browser, refresh, there goes the delete post button. So that should do it for our posts. Now let's jump in and start working on our comments. So we're going to have kind of the same thing going on for our comments, but slightly different checks. So let's go ahead and define out what all we're going to have here. So we're going to have define, we're going to have view comment list, user, and this will also allow null. And for this, we're going to want the post. So we'll take in the type of post. Okay. So there is our view comment list. We'll figure out what we need here for that in a second. Next, we're going to need just create comment. And this one will take user of type user, that will not allow guests, post. And then we're going to have edit comment. That one will again just be the user. And then instead of post here, we're going to want the comment. Okay. And then lastly here, we're going to want to be able to destroy. So let's do destroy comment. And again, this one's going to take user, comment, and comment. Okay, so these are the actions that we need to actually define. We've got view comment list, create, edit, and destroy comment. Now the reason why we're using the post here instead of the comment on our view comment list and create comment actions is because we're going to want to determine we're going to want to use that post to determine whether or not we should show the comment section and whether or not we should show the create comment form. For example, if the post is not published, then we probably don't want to display the create comment form because there's no reason to allow comments on an unpublished post. The same with viewing. And then also for the view comment, we're going to want to allow guests. So let's be sure to set that to true as well. So for viewing the comments, we're going to want to allow all if the post is published. So for this, we can really just return post.isPublished. So if the post is published, then allow the viewing of the comment section, otherwise don't allow it. And the same here with create comments. So we can return post.isPublished. Whenever it comes to editing a comment, we're going to want to restrict this to just the comment creator and administrators. Again, administrators is already taken care of via the before hook. So all that we need to worry about is checking for the comment creator. So we can return whether or not the comment user ID equals the user ID. So if the comment user ID and the user ID are the same, allow the editing to occur, otherwise block that. Now, whenever it comes to destroying comments, that's where our roles kind of play a heavier role. Not only are we going to want to allow the comment creator to delete their comments, but we're also going to want to allow moderators, editors, and admins to delete their comment as well. Moderators so that they can moderate the comment section. Editors, kind of the same. They're just a little bit higher up. They have more accessibility within our application. And then administrators, of course, can do whatever, so they're open to whatever they can do. So first, let's go ahead and check whether or not the user is one of those roles. So let's do const allowed roles equals, and let's define those roles. So we'll do role dot, and let's do moderator, role dot editor, and role dot admin. And then what we can do is return comment dot user ID equals user dot ID, or allowed roles dot includes user dot role ID. So here we're checking whether or not the authenticated user is the comment creator. If they are, then we want to allow access. If they are not, then we want to check whether or not the authenticated user is a moderator, editor, or an administrator. If they are, then we want to allow them to delete the comment. Otherwise, we want to block that. So just like we did with our posts, let's first apply these within our backend. That way we can still use the front end buttons to perform those types of actions. And then once we verify that our backend authorization checks are working, then we'll go ahead and hide them away on the front end. So let's first jump into our post controller because we want to first take care of the view comment list. And that is going to be within the post controller underneath this show method. And for this one, we're not going to want to throw any error if the user's unauthorized. Really, all that we want to do is not preload the comments or preload it as an empty array, whatever your particular preference there is. And then if they don't have access to view the post outright, then we would throw that unauthorized error. Or in this case, that's throwing a 404. Now, since we need the post for this particular action so that we can check whether or not the post in itself is published, we're going to want to take the preload off. So for right now, I'm just going to comment this out so that I can reference exactly what I'm preloading it based off of. And then let's go ahead and do if await bouncer dot, and then we're going to want to use allows here so that we don't throw anything. View comment list and provided the post. So if bouncer allows the user to view the comments for this particular post, then we want to, at that point, go ahead and await post dot, and then we will load comments, and then let's perform the same query on that. So we're preloading the user for the comments. Okay, so now that we have that, we're good to go ahead and get rid of that. So we can save this, jump back into our browser. And so since really the comments are only hidden on unpublished posts and we need to be a user authorized to view those posts, let's go ahead and switch users here. So test user 1. Okay, let's jump into our post and head over to that unpublished post. And you can see that's working, but I did a bad boundary check and just have post.comments.length referenced. So we can jump into that and fix that really quick. So let's jump into our show, scroll down to here. And so we can make this section just a little bit safer by adding question marks onto those properties. And then we can also add an additional display on here. So at cannot view comment list and provided the post at end cannot p, let's do class text gray 600, and let's say comments for this post are turned off. There we go. So now if we jump back into our browser, refresh the page. Okay, so now we're getting both, but we still are getting our comments for this post are turned off section, which is right. So let's move that if into an else. So we could do cannot and then tack on an else, and we can move this if inside of that else. Okay, so there we go. Now if we refresh, there we go. So now we're just getting comments for this post are turned off. And if we head back over to 1, everything should be loading A-OK. Next, what we want to do is take care of the creating a comment. So let's jump into our comments controller for this one, and we'll go ahead and take care of the rest of the checks. And then we'll take care of checking them on the front end, and then we'll get rid of them on the front end. So first we have create comment. So for our store, let's go ahead and import Bouncer. Okay, for this one, in order to stick with our use case here, we're going to also want to get the post. So we can await post.find or fail. And then we have params.postID. And then we can do await bouncer.authorize, create comment, and provided the post. So now that will properly check whether or not we're allowed to create a comment. And then we need to do update and destroy. So let's do Bouncer there, and we'll do Bouncer here. And then for both of these, we're going to need the comment. So right after we get the comment, but before we validate, we will await bouncer.authorize, edit comment, and provide it the comment. And then again, for destroy, we'll do the same thing. So after we get the comment, but before we delete, await bouncer.authorize, destroy comment, and provided the comment. Actually, real quick, this is supposed to be post_ID. That's how the param is defined. So let's jump back into our browser now and let's test these out. So let's just try to create a new comment here. This is on 2, our unpublished post. So if we try to create it, boom, there we go, not authorized. If we log out, let's go ahead and register up a new user so that we know that they don't have any comments within our system. Okay, there we go. So let's jump into our first post, try to delete this comment. Boom, there we go, not authorized. And then I actually didn't do a front-end version for editing a comment, so we can't quite test that. But we do have the controller function made for that in case you want to take the precedence and do that for yourself. So now all that we need to do is hide that delete comment button, and then hide the create comment form on unpublished post. So let's jump back down into the post show page, and right here is our delete comment button, but that's actually a part of this whole form. So let's take the whole form, @can destroy comment, provide it the comment, @end can, and paste that form right back in there. And then if we scroll up just a little bit more, we'll get the form for actually creating a comment. So we can cut that out and do another can, create comment. And for this one, we want to provide the post, @end can, and paste that form back in there. Okay, so that should do it for those. So if we jump back into here, refresh, we should not see delete comment. And there it goes right away. And if we jump into 2, oh, yep, we need to switch back to our authorized user there. So let's test user 1. Okay. Jump back into here, go to post number 2. So here is our post. The create a comment is gone. And we also see comments for this post are turned off. Okay, so that should do it. That should be everything that we need to take care of here. So we can round out the check for our unauthenticated user here. Boom, there's everything. The created comment is gone. If we go to post number 2, which we already have tested before, we can see that it's not yet published. Okay, so before we do any other testing here, let's quickly create 2 other comments. So let's do test comment 2 and test comment 3. Okay, and now let's go ahead and make a moderator. So that is a role ID of 2. So we're going to change our test user 3, which is the last user that we created, into a moderator with a role ID of 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and log into our application with that user. So test user 3. Okay, there we go. So now we are now test user 3. So if we jump into this post, we should now see just the ability to delete comments. We cannot delete the post or anything like that, but we can come in here and delete away comments. Now if we change this to a editor, which is a role ID of 3, and we jump into the browser and we refresh, we should now see the new post button. So we can now create new posts. So test post 2, this is a test something, and we're going to go ahead and publish it. So there we go. And we can now edit the post, and we can delete the post as well. But if we log in as a different user, so let's register another user, test user 4. Okay, and let's change this user to an editor as well. So a role ID of 3. Update that, jump back into here, go to test post 2, and you can see we can neither edit nor delete this test post, and we can't do the same for this one here. So that's working a-okay too. And now the last thing to test for our test user 4 is administrator with a role ID of 4. So now we should be able to do everything. So if we jump into our test post 2, you can see that we can edit posts, we can delete posts. So let's go ahead and delete that post, gone. And then we can come into our test post 1, delete a comment, gone. So everything there is working a-okay as well. And then we can also create a post as well. So boom, there is that. So everything's working a-okay, just the way that we need for our particular authorization use case. So now in the next lesson, what we're going to do is learn about policies, and we're going to use policies to extract all of our current actions out into resource-based policies so that we can keep our actions nice and clean and easily scalable.